The new course key stats tool is one of my favorite tools. And in fact, it's one of my favorite calculations, and then built in a way that I think is easier to consume than ever. So if you've been following me for even a little bit, you know that I'm so proud of my course correlation, course key stats model, whatever you want to call it, because I believe it is not reactive like other models out there, and it is a bit more proactive. So if you've never heard me talk about this before, essentially what I do is I take a dozen years worth of data, a dozen years worth of results for every player at every single course. Then I take every single stat on the PGA Tour and I grade those stats for those players against each course. And essentially what it ends up doing is it starts creating groups of players with similar skill sets that tend to have success on these golf courses. And then you can start to say, okay, well, if these are the similar types of players who are having success, here are the types of stats that you should be looking for, or the types of players that you should be looking for each specific course on the PGA Tour, or even courses that have since been retired or unused for a little bit. It really helps to get a big of a pool of courses as possible. So I have run that model for every year for the last 12 years for every player. And in total, it comes out to be 70 different courses that have essentially a large enough sample size to be able to do this at on the PGA Tour. Obviously, some we go to every single year. Some maybe we go to every other year. Some might not even be on the schedule anymore. But 70 different courses were in my entire model for this run. So on the left-hand side, you're going to have the opportunity now to flip through whatever course that you want. You can do a drop down, you can search for a specific course, you can just scroll through, you can do whatever you want, but now you're gonna have the ability to click through different courses, which is not something that you were ever able to do in the past. It was only me allowing you to essentially see whatever course was for that week. But now in theory, you can flip through and see any course at any time that you want. On the left-hand side, you're gonna see the type of greens, the architect, and then some general basic information about the course, how long it is, what the par is, and what the average green size is. Then on the right-hand side, this is one of my favorite new aspects of this. There's a radar chart. This is essentially me taking the most important or the best stats that we have on the PGA Tour and starting to show you which ones are important at this course. Of course, there are way more than these handful of stats, but some of them are flawed stats. Some of them are really subject to small sample sizes, or they're not very good at predicting things. So what I did is I narrowed this down to the handful of most important stats. It's the strokes gained metrics, it's driving accuracy, and it's driving distance. Those things are very, very predictive when we start to do these models. I have overlaid whatever course that you have selected with the tour average course, like a dead even tour average course. So the course that we're looking at right now, Eastlake, is the green web here, and the tour average is the black/gray web. And you can see as you look around, you can see how important each stat is. And each stat is going to have a value, that is a correlation value, and each stat is going to have a rank. For example, at Eastlake, it ranks 8th in terms of driving accuracy, which means there are only 7 other courses out of 70 in which driving accuracy was more important. That is a very big deal, but someone's going to say, but Rick, the value is only 0.15 when strokes gained approach's value is 0.23. Isn't strokes gained approach more important? And the answer is yes. So really, we could do this for every single course, and strokes gained approach is almost certainly going to be the most important stat because of its highly correlated value. This number right here, 0.23 in the case of Eastlake. The reason that I rank them is because it starts to show which different skill sets are important at different places. If we just went by the straight value number, every single week, the most important stat would be strokes gained approach. And obviously that's not always going to be the case, but it's just the most highly correlated stat at basically every single course on the PGA Tour. Ranking them allows us to see the differences. So this is ranking the value for driving accuracy against every other value at every other course for driving accuracy, and doing the same for distance, and doing the same for every single stat on the PGA Tour to really hone in on what the important factors are. As I click through a couple of different courses, you'll be able to see how this overlay changes. Let's go to Quail Hollow. You'll see Quail Hollow actually starts to look a lot like a tour average course, except for the fact that driving distance is a little bit more important, and driving or strokes gained approach is a little bit more important, and strokes gained off the tee is a little more important. Strokes gained putting and driving accuracy, they're both a little less important, right? So that's kind of how you read this chart, although it shapes up to be rather similar to the tour average course. Let me give you an example of kind of an extreme course. How about Pebble Beach? Pebble Beach is a pretty extreme course when it comes to the metrics. You can see that, driving accuracy, very, very similar to tour average. Driving distance is more important than average, while approach, off the tee, tee to green, and strokes gained total are all less important than the tour average. And some of this stuff you have to think about. Why is driving distance important at Pebble Beach? Well, it's not necessarily off the tee, because there are kind of natural landing spots at Pebble Beach where everyone is hitting to. It's a very short course, if not the shortest course on the PGA Tour, but driving distance actually comes into play more on the second shot at Pebble Beach. Because everyone's hitting from the same area, imagine the advantage that the longer players have when they're hitting an 8-iron in and their peers are hitting a 6-iron in, something like that. So remember to think through why these stats could be valuable, or why they might not be as valuable as you think that they are. Now, on the left-hand side here in this table, I have continued to just give you access to all of the stats and how they rank. So, for example, the highest, most correlated stat to success in the last dozen years at Pebble Beach, believe it or not, is the current streak without a 3-putt. Yeah, exactly. This is why I rank them, and this is why I narrow it down to the most important ones, because this is a very, very noisy stat. It is more coincidence than anything. It's the better players might be the guys who have the current longest streak without a 3-putt. It's kind of a silly stat, at least for our purposes, but I did not want to remove the ability for you to see the highest correlated stats to success no matter what they were. Obviously, I did my part on the right-hand side by narrowing them down, but I wanted you to still have access to this table if for whatever reason you wanted to see the top stats. It's all you. Do your thing. Now, I want to go back to Eastlake, and I want to show you the bottom part of this new tool. And this is, to me, the best part. This is years and years and years in the making. And essentially what this is a way to take all of the information that we have been looking at on RickRunGood.com for years and all the things I'm so proud of, and then saying, okay, take that information and tell me who the best players are. Who is the best fit, course fit, based on the stats of the golfers in this field? It is really the $1 million question. You can know what stats are important. You can know how much more important they are here than at another course. But if you don't know the players that fit, it becomes incredibly difficult, and you do a little bit more guessing. But I believe I've devised a calculation to show us the best fits. So long story short, what this table does is it takes the same stats from up above, the strokes gain metrics, accuracy, and distance off the tee, and it looks at how valuable it is at the course that you have chosen compared to the tour average. And then it has taken the metrics for the golfer that you have, or that you're seeing in these tables here for every golfer in the field, and compared their strengths and weaknesses compared to how important those stats are. And essentially it pumps out a fit number, adjusted fit, because these are adjusted numbers, an adjusted fit number. So based on just kind of the default rankings here, Jon Rahm would be on paper the best fit for Eastlake. Now, let me show you something that I think will really kind of drive this home a little bit. Let's use Bryson DeChambeau as an example. We know he is the longest hitter on the PGA Tour. So distance is always going to be an advantage for him. And at East Lake, he basically gets a 1.05 score, meaning that his average distance and how important it is at East Lake, it gives him about a 1.05. Call it a multiplier, call it whatever you want. It's a value. And when we go to courses, and remember, driving distance at East Lake, not all that important, 52nd out of 70. But when we change this to a course where driving distance is more important, let's go back to Quail Hollow. So we're going to go from 52nd in the rank to 24th in the rank, and you see Bryson gets a much bigger multiplier, a much bigger value in the distance department, because now that skill set that he is so good at is much more valuable. That's what this is saying. So it's basically looking at how he compares to his peers, how each course compares to its peers. The average course determines how valuable each main stat is, and then assigns the values accordingly. And when you start looking at it like that, it really starts to show why this could be really cool. The courses where distance is more important, the bombers get a bigger boost, and then you can kind of adjust from there. So this is Quail Hollow. And, no surprise to see John Rahm near the top, and Patrick Cantlay and Abe Answer and Bryson DeChambeau. These are guys that are all good off the tee. You see Answer does not really get that big of a boost because of his distance or lack thereof. It's just kind of a situation where he's able to kind of make it up in other places. Now, when I created this, I really wanted to give users an opportunity to adjust this themselves. So I've defaulted in here the last 50 rounds. If you change this to maybe the last 24 rounds, you are going to see movement on this board. That's right. Look at Patrick Cantlay fly up here. Bryson DeChambeau moves up as well. Maybe you want to go back a little bit further. Maybe you want to go back to 100 rounds. This is now on you. This is your opportunity to say not only who fits this course, but in what time frame do I want to use them in? In what time frame do I want to look at their stats to see if they fit? Because this is your opportunity to say long-term, short-term, or anywhere in between. So for me, incredibly proud of this tool and the way that it's shaped up. I've got a few more ideas in the back of my brain that might rattle around and come out in updates in the future, but I am so happy for this, and I can't wait to use it every single week.